Well, from John Sparks in Bangkok to here in Kiev. Now, every revolution is defined by a square, and the square that defines this revolution is Independence Square, the one behind me. Many crestfallen faces there today because the government fought off a vote of no confidence forced on them by the people behind me. Here's how the day went down after some very raucous scenes in Parliament. The sun in their eyes and thoughts of revolution on their mind, they were all heading in the same direction this morning. To Parliament, not to storm it, but to encourage a vote of no confidence in a beleaguered government. As they marched, the riot police looked on and mostly kept their distance. Gangsters out, they shout, referring to the government. They were here for the Orange Revolution 9 years ago. Now they've come back for the sequel, and they're well organized. The revolution must be fed. It must drink lots of sugary tea. It must clean up after itself to keep up appearances, and it must try to be clever. We met Andreo, a scientist with some simple but effective ideas for defense.
This is ice. We make it in the night.
You made ice?
Yes. From
Why?
bottom, we try to protect our people.
With ice?
With ice.
How?
If police attack us on his hill, they will
slip.
Slip, yeah.
It's ingenious. This is a civic rebellion driven by people who yearn for better, cleaner government and who'd hoped that membership of the European Union might provide it. Hence the European flag waved with rare gusto in this city. Elsewhere the EU might be maligned or mocked, but here it is seen as a lifeline, as protection against their overbearing neighbor Russia. Just ask Viktor the Cossack from western Ukraine, who's incensed by the government's decision to snub the EU. How long is he prepared to stay here in Kiev?
Наскільки часу ви збираєтесь тут залишатися?
Надіємося, що до перемоги.
Till the victory.
It is a clash of visions about power and geopolitics with stakes to match. So I'm right in the middle of this human throng of tens of thousands of demonstrators in front of the Parliament building, which is up there, right next to me. And then, of course, between the building and the demonstrators, a phalanx of riot police. If this were to become a flashpoint, well, you can imagine in this canyon of streets, it could get really ugly. Round the corner, I went to the rally organised by the pro-government side, a more lonely, somewhat lacklustre affair, staged as a B-movie, but with no shortage of protection. The grim face of authority set to the self-pitying muzak of national nostalgia. Next stop, inside Parliament, where tempers in the chamber were getting frayed ahead of the no-confidence vote. The Prime Minister condemned the demonstrations as a coup d'etat, and being from eastern Ukraine, he spoke in Russian. The opposition deputies didn't like it. Speak Ukrainian, they protested, for 20 minutes, while he soldiered on, unheard. During the break, we caught up with surely the tallest and most famous Ukrainian alive, Vitaly Klitschko, world heavyweight boxing champion and now opposition leader.
It's not smelling democracy, it's smelling dictator.
Of dictatorship?
It's dictatorship.
And how long will this whole thing last? And how's it going to end?
We're doing everything, it's not so long.
Would there be bloodshed in the streets, do you think?
No, never, never, ever. I want to call to everyone. If it have to be peaceful demonstration, no blood.
But if the president doesn't resign, if the government doesn't resign, will he carry on in the streets?
We will be demonstrate.
You will carry on demonstrating?
Yeah.
Okay. But there were no knockout punches today. The government survived the no-confidence vote, perhaps because the opposition is divided and tainted by the time it spent in power. A point I put to the daughter of the second most famous Ukrainian alive, Julia Tymoshenko, currently locked up by the government on corruption charges. The people here are upset with government, either that's in office right now or the government that they had in the past. They're not happy with your mother. They're not happy with people here.
I don't think so. Because you should hear a million of people who stood at the square in Maidan in Kiev shouting my mother's name and demanding her to be free. They hate President Yanukovych for what he's done to them. He stole their possessions, he stole their life, and he stole the European choice that people were hoping for.
So she didn't let them down at all? A day that started with hope and confidence for the sequel of the Orange Revolution ended with disappointment. Victor and his fellow Cossacks looked crestfallen. The face-off between democracy in parliament and democracy from the streets simmers on, and the barricades are part of the Christmas decorations. Well, you might wonder where President Viktor Yanukovych, the embattled president, is in all this. Well, last night he was on local television talking to the anchors of all the main television networks, and he was blithely confident about the situation, so much so that today he actually flew off on an official visit to China. Meanwhile, in the city itself, after the vote of no confidence failed, there were some isolated scuffles, but I repeat, they were isolated and relatively harmless compared to the violence that we saw at the weekend. Now, let's bring in my guest here, Vitaly Klitschko. Mr. Klitschko, you saw him in the piece earlier. He is not only the most famous Ukrainian alive, but also perhaps the tallest. You lost today, didn't you? I mean, you lost the vote of no confidence.
We lost, but the government and the president show real face. We want to change this. We want to change this in the country. And what happens is a couple of days ago here in the square, the special forces of police beat peaceful demonstration of students badly, and nobody responsible to destroy this association agreement to the European Union.
Although the president did promise an independent investigation into why these beatings happened.
We listened so many promises, but everything was promises. President promised to sign the association agreement next time. When? The question. It's everybody knows in the world. It's just president don't want to sign. It's influence of our east neighbor.
But the president will basically stay in power until the next election in 2015, won't he?
President's still in power, but if a couple of thousand people come to the street, for example, last weekend, almost 500,000 people come to the street to demonstrate against the activity, against this government, against president, against everything what's happening in Ukraine.
But this can't go on, this in the square. This can't go on indefinitely, can it? People are going to go home at some stage.
Yeah, the people coming and people going. Today was more than 50,000 people here in the stage, but we expect this weekend coming more and more people.
I know that you want to be closer to the European Union. You spent a lot of time in Germany and other European countries. But what do you say to those people in the Ukraine who are much keener on staying close to Russia?
You know what? We talk about life standards. It's custom unions can compare. GDP in custom unions and European Union is much less. It's what about education? What about social standards? What about life standards? It doesn't compare. It's European Union. We are Ukrainian European with our history, with our mentality. Geographically, we are European, but we have to build European standards of life. It's just one way to sign European, to be part of European Union.
But the fact is that the president of this country was democratically elected in 2010, whether you like him or not.
He's democratically elected, but he doing undemocratic things in our country right now. It's people doesn't trust him anymore.
Okay. Vitaly Klitschko, thank you very much indeed for joining us here in Independence Square.